Kuzampana, and welcome to Her Story. Our guest for today is one of the senior-most female practicing journalists in the country, currently working with Quinso, Tashi Dema. Thank you very much for taking out your time to talk to us. So let's first of all start talking about where you were born and your family and your siblings.
Thank you for calling me to this show. I was really excited when you asked me if I can come, because I thought that here is my story, and I feel since about 80% of the Bhutanese population still live in the villages. I thought that I would tell this story so that other parents would get inspired to send their children to school, especially like their daughters to school. I grew up in this remote village. It's called Bimji. It's in Trongsa. When I went to school, there was no village. There was no school in my village, so we had to walk 25 kilometers away from our village to the school. So because there was we didn't have, our parents couldn't come and stay with us because they had to work in the farms. I stayed in a small shack near the school with my father's friend. It was a very difficult childhood, I would say, because we had to, I keep telling my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter, that we have to do everything for her, raiding her to school, picking her up from school and all. I tell her that at her age, I had to cook my own food. I had to fetch water. I had to brew alcohol, So, but despite all these difficulties, I would say that the woman who kept me with her, she was a very generous lady. If not for her, my parents could not have come and stayed in Tongsa and looked after us. So I would have dropped out of school. Okay. It was so generous of her to keep me with her. And then after that, when I reached class 5, we availed hostel boarding facilities.
So you stayed with her from class
pre-primary till fourth. So
standard.
From the 5th standard, I availed boarding facilities. So it was much difficult. It was much easier for my parents because they didn't have to worry about, now they didn't have to send rations for us.
Okay. And how many siblings do you have?
I have 8 siblings, and I am the first one to be out of the village. I'm the first one. My parents, my brother was enrolled in school, but he didn't stay. So then my maternal uncle and my dad put me in school. So among 8 of us, only 3 of us have gone to school. So me, my brother, and my youngest sister. So my youngest sister will be graduating this.
Okay. Did your father ever tell you why he put you in school? Or did you ever talk about it with your parents?
I know that question never struck to me, but then I think that my uncle, who was in army then and who works for others, he realized the importance of education, my maternal uncle. So he was this driving force behind my education. My parents are farmers. They didn't have money. They didn't have enough. They couldn't afford to send me to school. So my uncle, my maternal uncle, he worked for others, but he ensured that it was not only me, but my other relatives, my cousins, also we get education, and he spent all his money on us.
Oh, wow. And so how many years did you study in the hostel?
I think my entire education, I studied in from pre-primary till 4th, I stayed in others' house. From that class, from 5th standard, I veiled hostel. So in my 9th and 10th, I went to Chakra High School, where it was another in hostel. Then after that, I went to Drugel. It was again in hostel. Then I went to Sherabse.
Oh, okay. And which year did you graduate?
I graduated in December 2004.
2004.
Yes.
And after that, how did you land up becoming a journalist?
I keep telling everyone this story, and I think a lot of people who are close to me are now fed up of hearing the same story again and again, because I keep telling that I am someone who became a journalist not because I was interested in journalism, but because I wanted a job. I had this huge responsibility of looking for a job right after my education, because I had so many younger brothers and sisters to look after, and I thought that if I don't get a job myself, I would never be able to support them. Mm-hmm. So then I really wanted a job, and right after coming right out of college, I saw an advertisement in Kunsel. I applied for it, and that's how I got it. And
did you consider doing the Royal Civil Service exam?
yes, my uncle, my maternal uncle who educated me, he really wanted me to do civil service like examination, because he thought that if you want a secure job, it is RCSC, he would then say. And then he would always tell me that, okay, I have this huge expectation from you, so you have to sit for RCSC and then become like a director or someone, you know. And I think my uncle had this huge expectation, but I was convincing my uncle that, see, my younger brother was then in class 10, and then I thought that if he doesn't qualify, I need money to support his education, to put him in a private school. So that's why I looked for a job. And then, yeah, I thought I really wanted to tell this story, that I grew up in this remote village without access to, forget television and internet, because I think Bhutan only opened to the outside world only in 1999. But I didn't even have access to newspapers or anything like that. So my only access to the outside world then was a radio my family owned. But then even listening to the radio was such a privilege, because we didn't have batteries, we couldn't afford batteries. So me and my younger sister, if you want to listen to songs, or if I want to listen to BBC and these Kharshong programs from Meghalaya, India, we would always like either dry the battery in the sun, or then heat it on the oven, and then, like, you know, warm it in our hands. So we have this huge memory. We have all these memories of growing up like that. But I never thought I would become a journalist.
You joined Quinsel in 2005.
Yes, 2005 May.
2005 May. Yeah. Would you remember the first story that you did?
When first Kunsel recruited me, I was not recruited as a journalist as such, because I was recruited as the assistant literary editor, because when we applied for the position, there were like 7 of us shortlisted, and there was only one slot, and one of my friends, she got as a reporter. But then I had this huge, I submitted this huge, I wrote a lot of stories, a lot of poems, a lot of essays as a student then, and then I would send it to Kunsel or print it in our school magazines. So all these compilations, I submitted it to Kunsel. So my then editor thought that, okay, maybe I'm fit to be in the literature section. But then after working there for almost like 4 or 5 months, I think I showed some interest in writing news, in getting some information. So if there's something I hear, I would go and tell my editor, oh, I heard about these things. So then he thought that, okay, maybe I can be a reporter. So then he sent me to India, okay, to do my postgraduate diploma in print journalism. So then after that, I came back, and then only I started becoming a journalist. So, but then I remember writing small stories was so difficult back then, because I didn't have any journalism background. I didn't know what I was supposed to write. I know that, okay, I have to write a story, but how will I write it, and what do I need it, all these things. I didn't have that basic thing about basic knowledge about journalism. So it was so difficult. So writing a 350-word story then was such a torture. But then I enjoyed doing it. I learned it on job, but then my seniors played a huge role in helping me how to do the story, how to do the interviews, how to talk to people. Mm-hmm. So they really helped me.
Do you remember the first story that you wrote?
Yes, I went to do a profile on a health official then. Mm-hmm. And after I came back, I sat down with one of my senior then, and then like we discussed about it, and he thought that, oh, I had this great idea about how to do a story. But when I submitted the story, he was saying, oh, I thought you were going to do better than, I think he had better expectations. And then later on, he helped me clean it up. No, mm-hmm. So he helped me rewrite it. So there were a lot of things like, yes, in Kunsel then, all my seniors, they were so nice, they were so helpful.
Bless. And what about your family? So I know you're married and you have kids, so what about your family? When did you get married?
Okay, it's interesting, because a lot of my friends say that if I didn't become a journalist, I wouldn't really have got a husband, because like I was in Jemgang, placed in Jemgang that time. I was a Jemgangi reporter. So on my way to Thimphu, I lost my camera, and my husband found it.
Wow!
So that's how we met. Mm-hmm. And I have a 7-year-old daughter. I
want to dig a little further in this. How did he contact you?
No.
When you lost your camera?
when I lost my camera, I talked to my editor and he said that the camera would cost about 35,000. So that was huge money for me then. And then I was like, I went to BBS. So I asked Sakyasang if you could announce it, if anyone finds it, and if anyone could return it back. So then it was actually a driver in my husband's side. My husband's side, he's a civil engineer. So a driver in his side found, and he gave it back to my husband, and then husband contacted BBS, and then that's how I...
Oh wow!
So that's how we met, and we became friends, and then yes.
Okay, and then you have a 7-year-old daughter.
Yes.
How did you manage to balance your life, your career, and your family? Because I know being a journalist, you have odd working hours. So how do you balance all that? I mean, how did you do it?
Okay, it's very when I decided to start a family, I kept telling all my friends in Council that I don't want to fail as a journalist, I don't want to fail as a mother, because I know a lot of our senior reporters, like especially female reporters, they leave the job once they start family, because balancing that part is so difficult. So I started on that note that, okay, I don't want to fail as a mother and I don't want to fail as a journalist. But then in the course of time, I found that it was really difficult to balance it. In my daughter's case, my job is from 10 a.m. till 10 or 11 p.m. in the night until the paper goes to print. So I didn't stay so much with my daughter. And I always left her with my sisters and my babysitters to take care. And then my daughter had a speech problem. So she started to talk only when she was 4.5. That also only after we did speech therapy for her. And then the speech therapist told us that my daughter's case is not delayed or anything like that. It's just that she didn't have enough vocab. She didn't have someone to talk to. She was always left with iPad or phone or a laptop. So it was such a difficult thing. Then I realized that, okay, if I have a second child or something like that, I might have to quit or something like that. It's really difficult. You either need your grandparents or someone to look after, or you have to dedicate your time to your daughter.
So you didn't have anybody helping you?
Yes, I did have I didn't have my parents couldn't come because my mother, she needs to be at home, and my sisters had to look after a lot of things in the village. So I had 2 babysitters, so both of them come from these deprived families where they couldn't continue their education. So I thought that if I bring them here, maybe it would be an opportunity for them to continue their education also. So in the daytime they would look after my daughter, and in the evening they would go to the evening continuing education classes. Yes.
Okay. So and how did you initially identify that Zema had speech
problem?
And how long did the therapy take?
It's very interesting, because initially I couldn't accept that, like any other Bhutanese parents or any other parents. I think it was so difficult for me to accept that, okay, my daughter has a problem. I was thinking, okay, maybe it's just delayed. Maybe it could have been just delayed, and maybe she would talk one day, because she would sing all these songs, but then she would not talk as a she would not communicate, but she can sing all these songs and all these things. So I was having this dilemma whether, okay, does she really have a problem, or what is the problem? I couldn't identify the problem. And then when I availed a scholarship, Australian Awards scholarship, I took her to Australia. So then the teachers there recommended me to take her to a speech therapist. So that's when I took her to a speech therapist. It took only 1 day for them, and that also 1 hour. Just 1 hour, yes, the problem. And then they taught her some basic things, and then after that she started talking.
Wow, so this is something which could have been prevented.
Yes, and I hear that a lot of Bhutanese children have the same problem, especially if both their parents are working. They have they cannot communicate. Whenever I share Zema's story to other people, they tell me some similar stories of their friends or their families. So I keep telling them that they have to do something like this.
Oh, wow, we're glad that Zema is fine now. And how do you find your life being a female journalist, and one of the longest practicing journalists in the country? So how is the whole experience?
Like I said, I am someone who became a journalist because I didn't want to. I really want to, but because I wanted a job. But having stayed in this profession, a lot of my friends, a lot of people who are close to me, they think that, okay, this is the right job for you. You know, they felt that, okay, I'm always nosy. I'm always like, I really want to dig something. So I was like that since as a child. And then, though, as a journalist, I thought that I had one of the best times of my life in this last 14 years. I always thought that if I do something, for me, the basic understanding of and all these things, is like doing your job properly. You know, doing what is like fulfilling that responsibility. And I think, yes, I had my own difficulties, but then I would say that I did, as a journalist, I contributed ngaragi small way nalu in the nation building. You know, I started as a journalist from Jemgang, one of the least developed dzongkhaks in the country, and then I made sure that I visited each and every gyok, almost all the villages of that dzongkhak, and also then after that I was transferred to Sirang, and then even in Sirang I ensured that I cover all the issues, not only from Sirang but from Dagana, from all the nearby dzongkhaks. And then I felt that I have, like, journalism, whatever is needed, I thought that I did it. So that makes me if I compare my own achievement to other people, yes, I did not achieve much. But then when I compare my own achievement to my past, I feel that, okay, this is how I have done a lot. I have contributed to the nation building, like by doing all these small stories, which brought a lot of impact. Yes. Yeah, one of the biggest contribution I could say is that there are like small things. You know, there is this small village that do not have proper drinking water menu, and when I did that story, when the Dzongkhak officials ensured that, okay, this village is connected with water, I thought that was an achievement. Yeah. Then there was this incident in Trongsa where a man first murdered his wife and then killed himself. You know, so then his children, when I went to there to do a story, I found out that a headmaster of a school had to look after his children. After I did the story, the children received His Majesty's Kidu. Wow. So all these things, so and then
you were the bridge between the people and the government.
Yes. And then there are incidences where there are a lot of poor people. So when I did the story, some people received help. So I thought that, okay, these are the things. Okay, these are some of the things that really keeps me happy as a journalist, I think.
Yes, and that is one of the true essence of being a journalist, being the bridge between the government and the people. And I think you've done beautifully. And you've also received a lot of recognition from the Journalist Association of Bhutan. You've won awards. So please tell us something about that.
More than this award, in making difference to people's life, making a difference to the policies that are not benefiting the people, I think that I consider that as more as achievement than anything. But yes, I did receive one of my stories on night hunting, the practice of night hunting. There were equal criticisms. A lot of people were not happy with my article. But then I felt that when I did that story, I thought that, okay, these are some of the issues our rural women are grappling with, and we have to bring it out, Zenodi. So I think I was the first person to talk about that night hunting culture. So I won an award for that article. The second article was on women and child care issues again. There was this girl from a remote village in Ha. She was first taken as a Mogi uncle. He exchanged her he bought some beef, meat from some family. He couldn't pay the money, so he exchanged her labor. But then later on, that family didn't take care of her. And she was lost. She was registered as a missing person. And I know that her parents and her brothers were fighting a case against those family who took her because she went missing. Later on, BBS Kisnampunsu helped me to do that story, because Kisnampunsu was in Samsi and he heard that, okay, that case, that missing girl's case has been re-registered again, because she came to the police and said that I'm not missing, I'm alive still up there. So then that's when I went and met her and I did that story, and then her story was so painful that her husband couldn't talk about it. So it was such a horrifying story. But then I thought that we need to tell this story so that people who, especially people, we all need babysitters, we all need helpers and all, but then we don't take care of them. More than the awards, I think writing about those stories and telling, I think, and making people know that, okay, these things are not acceptable, I think that's the huge achievement. The main problem right now here in Bhutan is that a lot of us feel that, okay, if I write a story or if I do a story, someone has to react and so it needs to create impact, say, or people have to listen to us, love the Zumbe. So we are setting our own importance. So I feel that, okay, we are just ordinary people, but we tell this story so that it needs to be told. So as long as we do our job professionally, we live in this close-knit society. Today I do a story about some contractor or some engineers involved in some corruption cases. Either my husband would know that person, also he or that person would be related to someone I know. So then and then in Bhutan, when we talk of journalism as a profession, the main problem journalists in Bhutan today face is that our people are not media illiterate. So they feel that, okay, today if I do a story, they think that, okay, you do it because you will get some recognition or something like that. Or if a BBS reporter wants to do a story, they think that, oh, BBS maybe he or she wants some recognition, that's why he or she is doing that. For us, I keep saying that that's our job. We have to do that. We have to tell that story, And then in this last 14 years, yes, because I chose to be that reporter who really wants to do all these stories which no one wants to be told. I made a lot of enemies. I would have, every other day I would have some people, some officials walking into Kinsel office complaining about me. So I keep telling them that, I keep telling my editors, I keep telling my bosses, I keep telling my friends and all, when they are worried, I keep telling them it's okay. I know that I did my job professionally. If these people think that I'm at fault, they would take me to court. So you don't have to worry.
Have you ever been dragged to court for all the controversial issues that you've covered?
Not really to court, but I have been threatened a lot. So I keep saying it's okay. That's part and parcel of our job. So I one day had this Sharapziki media student coming to me and asking me, how is it being a journalist? Is there a future for journalism? So I told that person that future for journalism is like as much as you would want to take risks, as much as your interest lies. If you feel that, there's no future, as journalists. A lot of people say that, okay, for journalists in Bhutan is much better than other countries and all, but we do have our own problems. But I feel that the passion, keeping that passion alive, that self-censorship, a lot of main problem here right now is that self-censorship. I feel that, okay, if we do this story, a lot of us feel that, oh, no one is going to like us, and you are going to make enemies with all these people. You are going to rub your shoulders with all these people who have influences. But I kept telling myself that, okay, all these things do not matter. And I know a lot of friends who are more passionate than me. So I really want to tell them that, okay, you have to continue doing this job because that's job mandatory.
I know you have a 7-year-old daughter. Would you encourage her to be someone like you? Would you encourage her to be a journalist?
I have this interesting story with my daughter. Every time she tells me some stories of her, whatever happened in her class or in her school, she would say, oh, mommy, don't write that in Kinsel, okay? So that she has become conscious in Baba. Then I had my youngest sister. She stayed with me, for her education. Grew up. So she doesn't like it whenever I do all these controversial stories because she gets worried. And I feel that my daughter is going to have that same moya. She is going to go through that same thing. So I would not encourage my daughter to become a journalist. But then if she wants to, I don't think I'll stop. Anyway.
Okay. And especially for a lot of young people who are watching this show, what would you tell them from your 14 years of experience?
As a journalist, I would want to tell a lot of our youth that don't lose hope. Whenever I tell this story whenever I go to villages, I see this family and I talk to them and I say, okay, Alugamchi, how many children do you have? Alugamchi school na jodo. They would say, school na jodo gachibini, aluyon metobe. Then I would tell them, Devi malab no, ayo matumi alugachi mo, pecha matami aldisui. So I would say that we still have shortage of engineers, we still have shortage of doctors, we still have shortage of a lot of experts that technical and the go pleasure too, and all this basic. The maybe education system is not catered in such a way that children they get the skills. Occasional skills they can be education system. I see the flaw, but then I keep encouraging these parents to send their children to school, because I grew up like that. Every winter I go home, I would have my mom and my elder sister telling me, now drop out of school. No, my mom would always say that no, drop out of school and find a small job anyway. But I never thought that I would drop out of school. Yes, I had a difficult childhood. My parents really suffered, and I really suffered to go to school, because we didn't have money to buy the basic needs. I went to school like that. But then that doesn't mean that we stop there. So I want to tell this youth, do not give up. And once you have your education, job you can make a lot of difference. In our time, yes, we really wanted a job. But then, if you have the rangira churupchi, we can do business. Then there are a lot of supports. All this financial or loan, so you can do some things.
Lasla, thank you so much for talking to us. And for our viewers, just before we wind up, let's check out what are Tashi Dema's 5 favorites.
Navy blue, JP blue. I like a lot of Nurburigi Pangsho, maybe, okay. Rice and Emerasi. I read a lot of classics, but I love books written by Charles Dickens, and Great Expectations is one of my favorites, like all-time favorites. Would you rather be infamous in history books or be forgotten after your death? So I think I would rather be infamous. I think I'm already infamous, and I feel that if you don't do anything, just like that ends there. Would you rather never lose your phone again or never lose your keys again? Okay, phone, because in this age of technology, I think a mobile phone has become like almost indispensable. Would you rather live your entire life in a virtual reality where all your wishes are granted, or just in the normal real world? I would want to live in the normal real world, and I keep telling that to my daughter, that we try to cut down her phone and iPad and all usage. I keep telling her that this is not a reality. Would you rather live in a cave or in a tree house? Okay, maybe tree house, because at this stage I have a daughter, so she really wants to have a tree house or something like that. So I would choose that. But as I age, maybe I would want to live in a cave and meditate. I'm crazy, I'm passionate, I'm very loud. Love playing basketball, and I love reading.